All right, thank you for staying with us. The stakes are higher for the 2023 general election as women are no longer relegated to the singing, dancing and ashwebi roles. They are now leading strategy and campaigns and serving as spokespersons. Although this is a welcome development, women still have a long way to go as the violence and inequality against women still persists in the society. This has called for global action to increase awareness, promote advocacy, and create opportunities for discussion on challenges and solutions. Joining us in the studio is Executive Director, Hacey Health Initiative, Rhoda Robinson. It's good to have you on the program.
Good to see you.
Good to see you again. Good morning.
Hey.
When it comes to issues about women, the government, through the Constitution, their documents, backing the criminalization of violence against women. We also have the VAP Act, but not much has been done because recent report that I got says over 3,000 cases of sexual and gender-based violence since 2020 to 2021, but just 11 convicted cases. What really is the issue? What are the bottlenecks?
Okay, thank you so much. Like as you've said, we finally have legal instruments that support the protection of women and girls from violence. The VAP Act of 2015, we have various state domestic violence laws, we have the gender laws, we have gender policies, all towards protecting women and girls from violence. However, it doesn't just stop at these laws. We need to implement these laws. And when you're looking at implementation, when you're looking at the effective persecution of perpetrators, you need to take into account that apart from the laws, we have other aspects of prevention, response for survivors and systems that need to be put in place. You said that we have thousands of reported cases, but less than 20 convicted cases. And one of the major issues that we've seen with this is, one, the cost of actually getting conviction, the time it takes for a case to go through the entire legal process from when the case is lodged at the police station to when it gets into court, and the numerous callbacks and readings and testimonies that has to go into place. So we need to find a system that takes into account the limited resources that different states and our judiciary system has, and how we can improve upon this so that justice can be affordable for survivors. Imagine if you're living in a rural community and you unfortunately are a victim of sexual violence, of rape. And from the point at which you go to the police station to lodge a complaint, you start paying bills, from the filing, for them to collect evidence, for them to pick up the accused. Bills start at that point. Now, if you're most of the time, victims are from poor, impoverished communities, a majority of them, you cannot afford those kinds of bills. You can't afford to the entire circus around trying to get the police to pick up the perpetrator and go to court and all that thing. I've been through that myself, and I can tell you it's tasking. As a supporter, not to talk of if you are actually the survivor of that incident, majority of the time looking at that stress, looking at the pressure from community, which exists till now, because a lot of communities still want to keep that under wraps, especially when you have cases of incest, and so they want to still keep that under wraps. So working across the legal aspect, the financial burden of it, it takes a heavy toll, and we need to start having deliberate investment into ensuring that these legal instruments that we have signed into law, that we have provided, actually work for survivors of sexual violence, of violence against women, of traditional harmful practices. It works to prevent the violence from happening. It works to support them if the violence does happen, and it works to help them get through that process at the end of the day.
What should professional women bodies, like, in the law profession, we have association of women lawyers, in the media we have them, in accountancy we have them, in NGOs and all of that. What should they all do when it comes to collaborating together, you know, to ensure that some of these costs that you talked about can be offset, or sometimes even taking up cases pro bono and so on? What should they be doing? What should we be seeing differently? Because we see that it is becoming a little challenging where we have a patriarchal system for the men to be the champion. Of course, there are so many men who are in support of, fine, we need to get rid of this and create a, you know, a level playing field for everyone, equality and all of that. But certainly, we still have the patriarchal system. But within that space, what should these women bodies be doing? Okay,
I'm glad you brought that up. I'll give an example of the Stop Cut project. As you know, Hacey has been working for the past couple of years on ending female genital mutilation. And one of the key things that we have done is to ensure that those bodies that exist are part of that greater alliance towards ending female genital mutilations. We have the FIDA, we have the NAWAJ, we have all this association, these groups of women body that are in existence, and building their capacity to be able to understand what is happening. Because you might find that, yes, violence against women and girls now is public knowledge. It's no longer a cultural thing. It's now seen as a criminal act. But a lot of people still do not understand exactly what that means, exactly what goes into prevention, advocacy, educating people to change their behavior into understanding that you cannot continue abusing women, abusing girls in the name of it's part of culture, what we've been doing so far. So associations like this need to increase advocacy. When you look at the media now, going into investigative journalism, covering more stories that talk about it, because it is harder to keep something under wraps when more people know about it, when more people are interested in that case. We've seen it happen so many times. We've seen it happen with the Me Too movement. We've seen it happen in Nigeria with different cases of gender-based violence, of sexual assault, that when the larger population gets involved in the case, it is harder for that case to die down or to be buried under heaps of red tape and bureaucracy and things like that. So we need the media to start pushing for stories like that, covering stories like that. And when you look at the legal aspects, pro bono is a very big thing that can help. A lot of people cannot afford legal help. Even within the middle class, it is still a struggle to afford legal help. So pro bono services offered for cases of violence against women across the entire spectrum would help in cases like this. And when you have organizations, CSO, non-profit organization, contributing and supporting to the rehabilitation of survivors, this also helps, because it doesn't just, even if or when the perpetrator gets convicted, a lifetime has been changed. How does she move from that point to start revaluing herself, moving away from the stigma and discrimination that comes with being known as a survivor of either sexual violence or domestic violence or things like that? How does she move her family in the case of mothers who have been through domestic violence or abusive partnerships? How do they move from that point to be able to sustain themselves and take care of their families where they are now the major breadwinner? So we need organizations to come in aspects of those kind of aspects. And when you're looking in the state aspect, there are ministries dedicated to things like this. You have the NAPTIP agency that works on this. NAPTIP has the sexual assault register, offenders register, that a lot of people need to start looking into, because you can stop a reoccurrence if those people that have been put in, you know them, and we can ensure that those people are also monitored so that they don't go to another state, another community, and do the same thing. A lot of offenders are repeat offenders. So if we can stop that from happening again, we can be saving a life. So this is something that this information, the knowledge, is something that we need to put out there as key stakeholders who have the knowledge. We have the platforms as well to be able to do this kind of thing. All
right, we need to quickly go on a commercial break. When we return, we'll continue the conversation. Okay. All right, thank you for staying with us. We've been speaking with Rhoda Robinson, who has been talking to us about the matter of sexual violence against women. She is the Executive Director, Hacey Health Initiative. And before we came back on the break, we were talking about the costs, you know, of investigation, the whole process, how it's become cumbersome. And if you could just give us an insight into what it takes in terms of monies now, how much it costs.
Okay, so let me give an instance. Say in the event that you have a rape case that has been reported to you, the first thing you need to do is ensure that evidence is collected. That's going to a hospital so that they take forensic evidence. Majority of the time, there is no rape kit available for that to be done. So you have to pay for something like that. And then this kind of processes of taking semen sample when it's available can run into hundreds of thousands. And that's one. That's actually having to take that person for medical care. You have to pay the bills of that medical care. A lot of times these people cannot pay their bills. You have to pay that bill. And then when you now go to report the case at the police station, because it can come either way. So either you go to the police station first, depending on the severity of that attack. You go to the police station or the hospital. When you get to the police station, you have to file that case. That costs money. You have to, they have to go with you. If you're going to the hospital again, they have to go with you to the hospital. That costs money. The cost of paying for the filing and
the
everything.
burden has to be on the victim.
The burden is on the victim. The burden is on the victim. When you come back, if you have to pick up the perpetrator, if
how
they have
much
to
are we
find,
looking at?
it can go from, depending on the police station, depending on the case, it can go from 5,000 upwards. If they have to go and pick up the perpetrator, you are fueling that car. Whatever vehicle that they are going to use, you are going to provide it so that they can go. Peradventure, the person escapes. If you are going to track that person, you are going to pay for that. There was a case we handled, and we had to pay for them to track the phone number to find where that person was. Now, the person had moved to another state. Getting them to pick up the person from the another state was another bill entirely, over 100,000 around, because the states were far apart. They said they could not get, they could not have them pick up the person there and transfer the person. They don't have the facility or the funding to do that as well. So when you look at all that, and then you're not coming to getting that case charged to courts, the legal bills that are involved in filing the case in court as well, the legal bills in if the perpetrator or the accused doesn't turn up and it gets moved again. For every time that moves, you have to transport the witnesses, the survivors to court, and the police, everybody that is going to present evidence in the case. Those bills fall on whoever it is that has taken up that case. A lot of times, survivors cannot do it. And when you think of that stress, that financial burden in the first place, they just let it go. Now, our laws provide that there is financial compensation. But a lot of times, we don't even get to that point. And then who pays the bills at the end of the day? After going through all that stress, the last thing on your mind is trying to push for financial return. You just want everything to be done with. And a lot of people just drop the case, and they will rather the perpetrator or the accused settles out of court so that they know that all that stress is gone. They don't have to spend money at all. I have a colleague that her entire organization is dedicated to funding that kind, and it is very, very hard. We cannot have a system that has been put in place without funding. You can't say that we have policies that protects women and girls from violence. And then the money needed to make sure that those facilities work does not exist. There's no budget for this thing. You're leaving it to the Office of the Public Defender, who has so many cases that they are dealing with already. And you're putting the sexual violence and violence against women on that as well. So they are stretched thin. And if there is no funding that is going into that, it's going to be very, very difficult for you to actually get convictions, because there is no funding, there's no budget to secure convictions in the first place. So we might have cases that we've seen it numerous times, cases of 2017 that they are just getting your verdicts 4 years later. There are bills across that 4 years that somebody is picking up. A lot of times someone just stops because they cannot afford it anymore. So we need to start looking at how do we ensure that there is a systemic change that ensures that people who go for justice receive justice. People who go for care receive care.
So they can get closure.
Exactly, because you need this at the end of the day. You need to be able to talk to a counselor. You need to be able to talk to someone who would listen to you and understand. How many trained counselors do we have that can offer their services free of charge to survivors of violence? There are not many. And there are so many people who are carrying this scar with them all through adulthood. It changes their perception. It changes their ability to be productive, not just for themselves, but for society as well. How many sexual and assault referral centers do we have in the States? We have teaching hospitals, one or two in each state. How much can they do to populations that are in the millions? And every day, the number of cases of violence against women and girls keeps increasing, especially now that we are seeing a very high rise in defilement. Yes. So we are looking at children that are going through this terrible, terrible practice, this terrible crime, and who is going to take care of them, both physically, mentally, and emotionally? Who is going to take care of the finances that surrounds them getting the help that they need?
Well, I keep asking this question around the roles that religion and culture play in all of these, because we are very religious people.
Yes.
And we are very cultural people as well, because when we engage and interact on a daily basis, these are some of the things that are very quick to rear themselves when it comes to, we talk about God easily, we talk about culture easily, you know, and so on. But in a situation like this, where when something happens and then people go for counseling, you know, either in a church or people talk about the issue of, you know, culturally, where this is supposed to be like this, you know, and so on. But how does it help or compound the situation we're talking about right now?
Okay, a colleague of mine said recently, just before I came on, that violence against women is no longer cultural, it's criminal. And we need to start looking at it from that perspective, first and foremost, before you start saying that, it's a family thing, or we shouldn't get involved. This exclusion of whatever happens in the family stays in the family, and the only person that is allowed to interfere is either your religious leader or your cultural leader or your family head. We need to break that thought in the first place and understand that when you perpetrate violence against a woman and girls, first and foremost, you have committed a crime. Whether or not the religious body that you belong to meant the relationship between you and that partner or the survivor and that partner is irrelevant to the fact that that crime has been committed, first and foremost. And we need to start emphasizing that we need our religious bodies, those cultural and religious gatekeepers, to start emphasizing that even if you come to us, there are still penalties that you need to pay. We can sort out the internal problems that you may have, but you still need to pay those penalties. And we need them, because a lot of people listen to their leaders, their religious leaders first before external parties, because we've had cases where a woman would come in, report domestic violence that has been going on for a long time, and then 2-3 months down the line, she goes AWOL. And you ask her why, she says that they've sorted it out. Give it a bit more time, she comes back again for the same case. So what are those people actually telling the partners? What are they saying to the woman? What are they saying to the man? What help are they giving in that space that this is wrong, you are not allowed to do this? So they need to start taking an active role in debunking that thought that it is allowable in the space of a family or in the space of your religious body, whether it's a church or a mosque, that is allowed. It is no longer allowable for you to be violent against women and girls. And that is a role that they need to start playing.
Right. Now we are in an election period. Everyone is campaigning and all of that. And we need to set an agenda for whoever takes up position, be it at the state level, local government level, presidential, and all of it. For you now, what would you want those who will be taking up the government positions as the elections happen, what would you want them to change? Because obviously the road to justice is quite a tortuous one for anyone who finds himself being a victim of sexual and based violence.
Yes, I think one of the first things that I would say needs to be firmly in place is the fact that these policies that are on ground, they are not perfect. They are workable right now. They are not perfect. But we need to ensure that they work. We need to ensure that the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act works for people. We need to ensure that the agencies and the ministries and the departments that are in place to implement these policies or to act on these policies, that's the police, the judiciary system, the shelters, we need to ensure that they have the right capacity to implement these laws, that the police is trained to respond properly and to respond swiftly. This involves both political will and a budget. A lot of people do not want to talk about this. We need funding for this aspect of life. We need funding to prevent violence against persons, violence against women and girls. You cannot keep saying that you stand for women or you believe in gender equality when you are not talking about how you are going to fund processes to ensure that gender equality is implemented or gender equality is achieved. You cannot say that you stand for women and girls if you are not ensuring that they are adequately protected from all forms of violence. When you're talking about harmful traditional practices, such as child marriages or female genital mutilation, whether you're talking about sexual violence within the family or domestic violence, you can't say that you stand for them when you are not funding those aspects that we ensure that they are protected. And we need to ensure that there is more funding going into awareness creation. A lot of people still do not know. You'll be surprised how many people do not understand the negative effects of female genital mutilation. Educated adults do not understand the process that is there. So we need to ensure that political leaders provide that political will and backing and funding to push the message out there, push the support systems out there, and ensure that everybody can access those services when they need it.
Okay. Absolutely. We have to leave the conversation here now. Executive Director, Hacey Health Initiative, Rhoda Robinson, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right.